So welcome back. Now we have come to the last session of the day. It's another roundtable discussion, a very fascinating topic, and I've been joined by some esteemed experts. We've got Dani Lukács joining us from the UK. We've got Catalina, I always, Ninger from UK as well, originally Romanian. We've got Pamela Perez based in Amsterdam, but originally from Mexico. And Irina Musuk, again, somebody who's based in Amsterdam, and I believe you're from from Russia. I forget. Sorry, excuse me. Is it
Moldova?
Moldova.
Romania.
Yes, Moldova. My excuses. The topic that we're going to have, the panelists discuss is own its career path shifts from HR to DIY, and this is literally the cornerstone of the main theme that we're talking about today, psychology of career development. And what we find is, especially over the last 20 years, with all the trends that are shaping up around us, whether it's digital technology, or whether it's the connectivity, global connectivity, our presence online, what we also find is there's constant pressure on companies regarding the cost, which is focused on employee training, HR parts, executive management. There's a constant pressure on cost reduction across the companies, which is kind of creating almost like a perfect storm, which is now making it even more difficult for companies to spend money on employees. And on the other side, they need to upgrade, upskill employees themselves is becoming more and more important, especially with the skills decay that's taking place with gig economy, the amount of time people stay in jobs reducing by the time, plus the fact millennials and Gen Z were coming into the workforce, their loyalties are different. They focus more on customer experience, employee experience, company experience, so rather than just asking for asking for loyalty without conditions. And that is the topic for the discussion today. So I would essentially not spend any more time in talking about the topic itself, but start with the introduction and have the panel experts give their perspective. So I'm going to start, Irina, with you, since I made the mistake of not remembering where you're from originally. So let's start with your brief introduction and your perspective on the topic.
Hello, everyone. I've been actually present during other panel discussions and was listening to other speakers. What a wonderful job you are doing. What a valuable conference it is. How many amazing insights. And thank you for creating this space where we can all reflect and learn from each other. I feel really humbled and honored to be here. You know how challenging it might be for someone who is moving to a new country to rediscover yourself, to find your worth and your value, to be strong in your, to know your strength, your potential, and to go for it. And my name is Irina, and I'm a life and career coach. And mostly I help expats rediscover their true self, their value, their worth, find their passion in a new country, in new situation, overcome their fears, overcome their challenges, know how to manage their self-sabotage, and how to take ownership of their career path and manage their own personal branding. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also a trainer, and I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about seeing them grow, facilitating change, witnessing these small transformations which happen during the trainings or master classes. And mostly my trainings are in the field of public speaking, communication, career, personal development. And I have to come up with what I think about the panel topic for today. Yes? Am I right, or am I only introducing myself?
No, you share your perspective as well.
Okay, I'll share shortly. As a career coach, I mostly work with employees, with the other side of the barricade, not with the employer, but with those who are seeking for jobs, who are working and who want to manage their careers, change their careers, who feel stuck, who are very close to burnout, who are lost. And I see wonderful, talented, bright people in front of me with so many capacities, with so much potential, who really create barriers and fears for themselves, and they're just inside of them. And what I also experience is that people are really searching for purpose, searching for meaning, and they're trying to find it in work. And I have come to a conclusion that work does not provide that. We are doomed to feel stuck and to feel unfulfilled if we search for purpose in work. Purpose is inside of us. First, we have to know our values, who we are, what is our authentic self, what is our mission, what we want to bring to this world, and we endow our work with purpose. That's one thing. So that's one of the perspectives I want to share. Another one, I'm sharing my very, very personal practical experience from working with people and observing. I love observing and seeing what actually brings that change. Which are these triggers, this key, how we are wired, why some people change so easily and go for it, and why some people don't. And what I have noticed, I will share with you. What helps people take full ownership of their path is when they embrace crisis and see crisis as an opportunity for growth. When they are honest with themselves and they know and they accept their fears and they can confront them. Confronting fears is so liberating, gives you so much freedom. What else I see is that they know their value, or they want to discover it, and they want to learn how to translate it to others, and they know how they want to be perceived by others. What I also noticed is that they act from the place of trust. Trust to themselves, in their own forces, in their own capabilities, but also trust in the world. Because the world is a good place. People are intrinsically good. No one wants you to fail or to see you failing. You are the biggest saboteur you can ever find is yourself, and no one is willing that for you. And I think I'll stop here. I don't want to speak too much. I would love to hear my colleagues and bring in different perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. Pablo, how about you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Perez. I am the founder of Diversity and Talent. Diversity and Talent is a consultancy that provides career counseling and initiatives for diversity and inclusion. I'm very excited to be here today, I have to say. Career development is a topic that I'm very passionate about. That's the experience of working together with individuals and the recognition to work with them and to find their personal and professional needs and desires in order to build their career path. That's something that has brought me a lot of joy as an HR professional. Something that I truly like as well, being an HR, is to have worked both corporate and also with individuals with their career development. Career development for me is not just to apply to a job or to look for a promotion. For me, career development is also what we have in every person. So especially now in our current times, something that I'm very delighted is to work with individuals to find their way. And also for me, I'm very grateful with all these people that I'm working with, because also I can learn with them. So that's a bit about myself.
Thank you, Pablo. Catalina, everything all right? We saw you just rush out.
Yeah, no worries. It was just, we've got a quarantine kitten who is bullying my dog. So every now and again, there is a fight in the background. But anyway, there's peace and quiet right now. So Well, thank you so much for the invitation. What a fantastic topic. And it's so great to be reunited with Anirvan. He and I go back 20 plus years when we were young and, high potentials.
I'm still young.
So anyway, so my background is in corporate and most recently in a scale up here in London. I've always been in HR on my career, as far as I remember. I think when Anirvan and Devin called me, I was thinking, you know what, I feel a bit of like a fraud, because giving career advice in 2021, when the world is disrupting in so many ways, when careers are being disrupted, where we know we're going to live for 100 years and we will have probably 4 or 5 careers in our lifetime, when we know that, obviously everybody is motivated by mastery, autonomy and purpose, but, how are companies, small and big, meeting that expectation, and how we are prepared as HR professionals to deal with all of that. It's, again, as I said, made me feel a bit like a fraud, right? And also, I mean, reflecting on my career, I started over 20 years ago, large corporates, GE, Vodafone, T-Mobile. It was so much easier ages ago, because you didn't think about your career. You thought about coming to work, doing a good job every day, building a bit of a network of sponsors, of mentors, and things were just going and happening by themselves, right? There was a path, there was a methodology, there was succession planning, and again, everything was kind of in a way laid out for you, and some were lucky and went all the way to the path and the ladders, others not, but it was something that was done to you, for you, by HR, the leaders. Well, fast forward 2020, you've probably been spammed in your inbox around all the talk around agile, right? And with the agile transformation and agile companies, the agile light or full scrum, careers have been turned upside down. So we're not talking about ladders and linear careers, but we're talking about lattice. It's okay to take a step back and learn a new skill, and you can take a lateral step and again learn a new skill and work in a different team and broaden that T-shape. So it's all a big blur right now, including for myself, who's been in the profession for many years. And I think it really resonated what Irina said, that all the coaching and the advice that we could give maybe to the younger people that haven't had all the wisdom of years that we have is to find it in what drives you, what motivates you, what's your purpose, and think from there versus I have career goals, right? When I coach now, my mentees and my younger team members, I find it really hard to manage that expectation. I always try to get them back into the drawing board and think, okay, what, how do you grow yourself? What drives your motivation? What's your purpose? And again, don't externalize this. Start with yourself, because again, the world is completely disrupted. There's no textbook or a playbook for career management anymore. And again, Agile disrupted everything, and COVID disrupted everything, because let's be honest, right now, people are happy to be in jobs, right? We're happy to have a home and have a job, right? And again, I think that this last year put perspective into the work that we do in HR, first to preserve roles and to help people find a purpose and still grow and still acquire new skills and thrive in the work day to day. But again, the concept of careers in 2021 is a bit daunting to me, because there's so much unknown, and any of us would pretend that we know it, we're just putting up a show. So anyway, on that positive note, I think I'll pass it on to Danny.
Thanks, Catalina. Hi, everybody. As everyone's already said, really great to be here, and such a fascinating topic and so much we could talk about. My background, or what I do, is I'm a senior training consultant and an executive coach on one side. So I specialize in leadership, particularly women's leadership. I specialize in creativity in business, and I specialize in personal impact in all its glory. And then the other kind of side of what I do is I'm also a freelance, multidisciplined creative practitioner, which essentially means I work in theatre and music and writing books and all of that stuff. And I've been doing that side of things for over 25 years. I bring that into this conversation because, we are in Absolutely. I think a couple of years ago we were talking about being in a VUCA world, right? Like, oh, we've got this volatile, complex, ambiguous world coming soon, and then bang, here we are, we're right in the heart of it. And so really we are at a tipping point in the psychology of career development. And I think there's a lot of questions and there's no definitive answers. There's really just, where am I in all of this? And the biggest thing that's apparent to me is it's almost a call to grow up now for everybody. For a long time, we've depended on HR, we've depended on the people in the senior positions to lead us through. And whilst we can still do a little bit of that, there is that opportunity now, within the limited bandwidth we've got in lockdown and COVID and all of that, there's the opportunity to now go, well, actually, I'm going to be the grown-up now, and I'm going to step forward and I'm going to look at what I want to do. How can I integrate the skills that I have from all the areas of my life and experience to date? Nothing's linear anymore. I think, Catalina, you were saying that about lateral, it is, we have to be lateral and creative now about how we bring things to the metaphorical table. And that's where I'm at with this. I think it's really about not having a huge list of new things to do, but actually going, what have I got already? What skills do I have already? And how can I utilize those, integrate them, and then implement them in order to not just bring myself forward, but to bring colleagues, clients, etc., forward, or indeed, where is my path now for those people who maybe haven't been so lucky to hold on to a job through this crazy, crazy time.
Excellent. Thank you, Danilo. Thanks for the introduction and also you sharing your perspectives. Let's get started with the actual roundtable. Let's start with Danilo, you. Where do people start? Because literally right now we're talking about an inflection point, a tipping point, as Catalina, you mentioned. And yet we see so many people standing at the fences. Where do you start?
I think you've got to start with you. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed and chaotic and frenetic with everything that's going on in the world. And it's noisy out there, let's be honest. You go on LinkedIn, you go on any sort of networking event, and it can be noisy. Obviously not this one, but it can be very, very noisy out there. And so that can be confusing, and we can get all sorts of conflicting advice. So people have to start by bringing themselves back to themselves, and then, where are your values? What are your passions? What are your skills? And then, to mention some of the motivators that Catalina talked about, what's ultimately your purpose? Start there. What have you already got? And then see where that takes you.
Excellent. Irina, you mentioned about purpose, you mentioned about value. Some of the millennials and Gen Z, as they come into workforce, right, they're still kind of going through their self-discovery process. And there's always a time when they should start looking at those values. And again, I'm not saying they should not be, but is there a time that you think that people should more often or, should do, let's say, deeper introspection of their values and purpose than people who are starting in their careers or people who are about to retire? Is there kind of a kind of a good age group to be where you start looking at that?
I think it's so universal what you're saying. I personally believe you should always question yourself and question the world you live in, and never come to a point when you don't have questions anymore. Like, oh, I'm an expert and I will take all the benefits of that. We live in a really completely different world right now, which changed so fast and dramatically. We are adopting. We need to be very flexible. And I think we are kind of creating a new workplace which will look very different. You're talking about millennials. There are Generation Z, Generation Y, Generation X. I'm already lost in all those. What I see is that people no longer are going to kill themselves for any job, and that they will very easily shift jobs, shift careers. I see a lot of people becoming entrepreneurs, seeking this inner purpose, higher purpose, going for it, being brave, being courageous, taking the risks, failing and crisis, I see also a lot, but I see also so much benefit in that. And if going back to your question, we should, I think it's very, very good habit to do sometimes, time to time, a reality check of what is going on in my life. Am I in the right path? How do I feel in that path? Am I myself? Do I bring value and passion? And do I feel happy about what I'm doing? Somehow it's also, if you look around, the new generation, they want to be happy. They don't want to be rich. They don't want to have a high position. They don't want a career in the hierarchy we're used to. Like they want something very simple. There is a lot of downshifting also when people from top, get completely lost. What am I doing? What is my purpose? And reality check first of all brings us to what we actually have. What is our place of what is our position of strength? We can move forward. Also, I personally believe, I don't think everyone should do that, but it's good to know where you're going. How do you see yourself? It's so banal, but it's so true. Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? Go back to that question time to time and verify it with which were your goals 5 years ago? Is there any shift? Are you still going in that direction? And sometimes when we think of what will be important for us in 10 years, in regards to our career, what we are doing today has nothing to do with that purpose or with that path we see for ourselves. So we can always bring ourselves into account where we are and where we are going. It's a very good habit, and it's part of emotional intelligence, flexibility, adaptability, all these new terms we're talking about, and we hear so often. And it's so simple.
Thanks for that, Irina. Agility, Scrum were a couple of words Catalina used as well, and throw them in. Catalina, I think that kind of nicely dovetails to the question I was going to ask you. This was from Gavin McGiven. As age demographics change, what do the panel think about career transition in later life, the obstacles, the prejudice thinking from HR and talent people, and how to overcome? And the reason I'm asking you is because you came from a very traditional large corporate kind of a background and you jumped straight into fire with kind of a startup scale up, and you've made a pivot in some sort. So what would be your reflection on that question?
No, great question. Actually, I think I behave a little bit like a millennial, right? Following my heart versus my brain, right? And went into first a sector that gives me a lot of energy, which is education, and second into a company that has zero structure, not a very clear future, not very settled, very small. And again, because I thought, I'll go somewhere small, I can make a bigger impact, and I can get my mojo back in terms of, in addition to the day-to-day HR, I can get involved in product development, I can get involved in partnerships, in sales and so forth, right? So, but that said, obviously there was a risk, right? Because once you settle on the path when you are, let's say, the peak of your career, any shift is kind of taking you back a couple of years. And I can, explain that because there is a very big, there's huge difference right now from a corporate established world and the SMEs and the startups. Startup entrepreneurs look at us corporate people and go like, nah, you will never be able to have that agility and adaptability and be on your feet because you are used to big structures and everything, right? So once you move in that startup world, again, you kind of lose all the equity that you built. Because you kind of have to start from scratch. So I think to the question is, it takes a bit of guts. It takes a bit of, a courage for that. And it's a very personal decision, right? It's harder as you postpone it. Looking back, I wish I did this a couple of years ago, not now. Because, look at all the small companies that were around a couple of years and now they are all IPOing and becoming, bigger players. So I kind of missed the momentum. But again, better better later than sorry. But I think it takes. I think we are in a better position later in your career because you have a better understanding of your skills, what you're great at, what you're not good at, and then you can have that evaluation around where is what should the next stop would be, and obviously a bit less idealistic about things as well, right? So you can be a bit good around the perspectives and have a SWOT analysis of what you would lose, what you would gain. But yeah, I mean, I think there will be more and more of us who will shift careers. Some because we will follow our hearts or be running from something, and others that will run towards something that gives us more energy and passion. And obviously, as long as the material side is okay. Some of us at some point in our career believe, okay, I'm not coming to work every day for the salary or the shares, but I feel like maybe I can take a step back from a monetary perspective, but I can maybe do something that I'm more passionate about, or maybe I'll work part-time because I like my allotment, or I want to write a book, right? So that's another thing. But again, it takes courage, and it takes a good understanding of where you're good at and where you could quickly ramp up, and also appreciate that you will maybe go a step or two back, right? And it's fine. If you don't have a big ego, that will be fine. You might not have the same fancy title or recognition in the market, but at the same time, it's probably worthwhile. So career transitions are hard. There are coaches out there that are actually focused on career transitions. And I think I would advise you to take a good coach if you are thinking of having a big career transition maybe later in your career.
Thanks, Catalina. Pablo, a question for you. Since one of your specialty is diversity, when we look at the workplace, we definitely see an increase in diversity that's taking place. But at the same time, there's still lots of prejudices, lots of preconceived notions. What are some of the biggest challenges that, if people have to take the control of their career in their own hands, what are some of the big challenges that you come across in relation to diversity? So on one side, you're trying to have a diversified workforce. On the other side, you have the challenge of people trying to take control of their career. So any perspective on that?
Yeah. I will split my answer in different parts. First of all, for any individual, regardless of diversity, inclusion, or anything else, I will say, first of all, you need to believe in yourself, especially because in current times, we're facing a lot of different situations. We're talking also about different generations. So let's say the intersectionality is very broad. And I believe that, especially in these days, we're living in a moment that we're facing change. For most of humans, change is a topic. So first of all, you need to believe in yourself. That's what I will say first. Secondly, you need to believe also about what you are doing. And you need to be proud of what you are doing. I would say also, you need to believe of what you are doing, because most of people, they will look at you and they will believe on you because you believe in on yourself first, and also of what you are doing. Secondly, I will say you need to look, and now thinking about diversity. Diversity has been there always, regardless of the country, regardless of let's say political situation, etc. Diversity has already been there. I believe that the challenge that we have nowadays is more about inclusion. And inclusion has different aspects, because you can be in a country that you have a lot of diversity. You can have all the different, let's say, gender, race, age, etc., you name it. But meanwhile, you don't have inclusion. That will be, let's say, the challenge. And this is being myself also a candidate who has been also diverse. I can tell you, you can be talking a lot about diversity. You can be talking a lot about initiatives and so on. But meanwhile, you as a candidate, you don't believe in yourself and you are not sure of what you are doing. That will be a challenge. And that's regardless of diversity. Going back to your question about if there are more challenges. Yes, there are. There are a lot of biases and biases in different aspects. There can be a bias about gender. There can be a bias also about about age, nationality, background, you name it. There are always biases. What I can also tell you is that locally, especially, I will say there is a world before 2020 and after 2020. In 2020, we have gone into a pandemic, different pandemics. We have gone into a health pandemic, economical pandemic, social pandemic. We have the example, for instance, from Black Lives Matter. And we have different situations where we have gone through to 2020. And now it's to 2021. I think we're living a fantastic time that also we have now a portfolio of different opportunities. We live now in a time that we have the possibility to talk about different topics as open as we didn't have before. So also this is the opportunity that also thinking about career development, thinking about biases and challenges that we can face as candidates. There's also now the possibility to talk about the challenges regarding diversity that we didn't have before. Thinking about diversity now and also the challenges from the corporate perspective, there are many companies that they are talking about diversity and inclusion. Because maybe it's something fancy, something trendy, it's a buzzword, you name it. I think it's very important that also for those companies that were talking about diversity and inclusion, always how I work with my clients is about what is the reason that we want to work, what do you want to increase about diversity and inclusion? What is the reason, right? So before that we're talking about implementing diversity and inclusion in recruitment, we also need to think about inside. Is our organization, and let's say as a group of good people, is already open and ready to bring someone who looks different than us? Are we open to talk about the challenges? Because you have a lot of examples that you have hired someone because you want to have a diversity hire. And when you bring them on board, it's not only because they look different, but also they think different. And the local population, they are not ready for that. So at this moment, I think also something fantastic from last year is that also there is more awareness. And the awareness is also about, okay, what are we doing within the organization to promote that? For instance, you have teams that there were only men before. Are we ready to bring the ladies in the team? Also, another moment that is fantastic in this time is we are talking about 5 different generational groups, four or five different generational groups. So you have the possibility to learn from every group. So it's also about how can we make the feeling of belonging regardless of any different intersectionality. So I will say at this moment, we can talk about what we did before in the past in different aspects, but I think something that, and also this is also something that I have been working a lot and also heard a lot, is we are learning. And we can pretend and we can say we have done we have done all these experiences in the past. But at this moment is we keep learning, and there is no answer for what we're doing. But we're working on that. And I think one of the most important points is to be open, and that every activity and any project that we are doing, an initiative, maybe we do the version 1. The version 2 and the version 3, and you will have many other versions, right? But I think the idea is how we can make it more better, so it works better for everyone, and at the end there is a real feeling of belonging.
Excellent. Thank you, Pablo, for that. Now a question, and this is where I guess we want to start building on each other's thoughts, right? A lot of us who are at least we have gone through, and some of the people in the audience will go through, which is known as mid-career crisis or midlife crisis or mid-career crisis, right? People in the late 30s, early 40s, going all the way into 50s, they face that. This is the time they actually also start looking inwardly. They start looking at their purpose. They start looking at their value, etc. Given the fact that, as Pablo, you pointed out, that the whole pandemic has given us time to reflect upon that, how should they go about it? And before I let you sort of share your own perspectives, one of the things, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and one of the things that they talked about is when you're in a corporate job, and Catalina, you and I will share the same experience, right? We're part of a large machinery. We would have junior people, departmental assistants who would do a lot of the running around, and then senior people, we would focus more on the strategic stuff, right? The moment you jump out and start doing your own stuff, because that's the purpose that you wanted to pursue, that's the dream that you wanted to pursue, you end up doing everything by yourself, and I'm already seeing Danny Lou smiling, Irina smiling on that. My first sort of reality moment was I would fly business class all the way, get these shortcuts. And then as an entrepreneur, I was standing right behind a queue of 70 or 80 people, taking an economy class plane. What are some of the things that you guys coach on, or you guys, tell other people, mentor other people with? Anybody? Yeah.
I'm going to jump in there. I love that little story of you being like behind the queue. It just brings it back. I miss those queues. I think there's no better place to be, actually, and it's quite a nice metaphor that you've just given us there, Anirvan, because we move from that sort of business class to that economy. That's absolutely true. Yes, you have to do a lot of stuff yourself sometimes, but isn't that a really great way to build the empathy and the compassion and the understanding of what other people are needing to do? It's a great leveler. Isn't it great to sort of cock your ear and hear the real conversation in the economy queue rather than being the guru in business class where we go, well, we'll give you the advice, but actually we don't know how this looks in real life. So I think there's a lovely value to actually being humbled by having to do a lot of stuff. But at the same time, there is the really important thing of, jokes aside, looking after our mental health, our well-being, playing to our strengths, not trying to play to, something that we're not that good at. This is where it's really about the networking. And this is where it's really about, building a network of people who you can pull on if you are going alone, that you can collaborate with, or that you can, pay and employ, or that you can, have some arrangement with, and then you can build on each other's skills as well. So that would be the advice that I would give, and not to be daunted. When I first set up my company, I didn't have a clue what corporation tax was. I didn't have a clue how to do VAT. I spent the first 2 years in panic, just trying to do my job and make it work. But, I think sometimes just jumping in and doing is the best way of learning it.
Irina? Oh, yeah, sure. Pablo, yeah. It's free for all now, so you can jump onto each other's topics as.
Thank you. What Danny just said, and I want to build on that, is about building community. I think at this moment in our lives, we have also the opportunity to be more equal, because everyone is another window, right, in the Zoom chat or in the presentations. So it's also about how, at the end, it doesn't matter in which country you are, we're on the same planet. And in some ways, we're facing a very similar situation. So it's also about how we can work on this together. So, as I said, this is also the moment of change, but also this change also brings us different opportunities for the future. And I think something that I have seen in the last almost 1.5 years is also how people can work together, and also we can learn from others. And also something very important is how can we be real, authentic, unique, and also to have compassion. Because also talking about going to the topic of diversity, every person has a different situation within the same house. You can be the husband, the wife, you name it. And something very important as well is how can we listen to the other person and have real compassion and support. Because at the end, we're on this together. And I think that when this changes and that when this improves, is also we will have a very good understanding of each other. And I hope that we will be also a better community and society. Thank you.
I want to add a joke. It's from my speech, which was I'm 40 and I'm happy. It was 2 years ago, so I'm 42, as you can count. And it's a wonderful age. At this midlife crisis, we don't have regrets because we call them life lessons. I always joke about that. It's a wonderful age, actually, for a career change, for anything you want in life, because finally at this age, most of us find ourselves knowing who we actually are, knowing our true self, our authentic self, and remaining in that self and being that person, no matter where we are in life. I work mostly with people in this age group who are not only changing careers, but they're changing countries. And there is a tendency to nullify the previous experience. And even when you want a change, even in the same company, you are afraid that everything you did before would not matter. Well, it does matter. Your strength comes from what you have already learned, what you already know. And people in this age are such valuable employees. I will tell you a terrible thing which goes still on, and in Eastern European market, open any vacancy, you will read something outrageous. They're looking for people up to 35 years old, usually, with nice appearance and things like that. A lot of biases already, and I think Catalina knows what I'm talking about. Yes, Catalina, you're coming from Romania, if I'm right. So if you're older than 35, then what? You're done? You cannot apply? How? And I can assure any employee, if there are among us listening now and today, that these people at this age are people who can actually bring authenticity, experience, humbleness, humility into what they're doing. And also what I see in companies and what brings amazing results is reverse mentorship. So if you are in midlife crisis and you are inside a company, midlife crisis can be at any age, actually. The middle of life has extended. We live very long now. So it can be even if you are 57, whatever, and you finally realize you're at a midlife crisis. There is a wonderful thing. What is reverse mentorship is when someone younger, much younger than you, newcomers to the company, mentor you. They bring new drive, new energy, that motivation you lost at certain point, a new perspective on how you do things. This technical vibe, like they know how to use digital tools, how to use social media, how to interact. And also at this age, you are, if you reach that age, you are a much better communicator, and you know how to create connections, how to create meaningful connections. So you are someone who shares, who can be generous with his experience and knowledge in a company when you're looking for jobs. So don't be afraid of your midlife crisis. Crisis is always good. I love crisis. If you don't have crisis, you are stuck. You learn a lot from falling or from feeling stuck. It gives you a lot of new doors and then a lot of new ways to even you know yourself from a different perspective.
No, I love what you're saying around reverse mentorship. We tried one at Vodafone, so we matched 250 young up and coming grads to our top 250 leaders to get them up to speed with the digital skills, as you said, but B, also learn from the youth, to understand how youth learns, what drives them, and be much more open-minded around it. And what we've seen is how the scheme was very successful. It takes a level of humility and humbleness from the senior leaders to accept that, right? And not all of them have it. So we were actually talking about, is that innate, or can we teach them to be much more humble, right? And obviously you can program this to death and you can impose a certain number of hours and reverse mentorship. But in the end, on the receiving side, they also have to be receiving that, right? But I definitely agree that I would encourage any companies, big or small, to do it, because they both mentor and mentee learn from it, right? There's a beautiful connection going on there, and both parties have lots of benefits.
Right. I was just trying to look up something, but I didn't know Catalina was going to stop. By the way, I still have 12 years to go before I reach, Irina, your age. So I'm ready to mentor you, Catalina, reverse mentorship here, if you want. Now we have talked about purpose and value, and the number that I wanted to look up, and I actually did in the past, is the number of books that you have in Amazon on values or on purpose, defining purpose. There are millions. If you do Google search, I'm sure the number is closer to 1 billion search results that you come in. But what are some of the practical stuff? When we talk about, let's say, values or getting yourself skilled, what are some of the practical stuff that we need to look at? Is it I take up a course in Udemy? Is it I actually go out and reach somebody like, who's my son's age or my daughter's age and ask them to do something? What are some of the practical tips that we can share here?
You talking about practical tips in terms of identifying your purpose and values?
No, practical tips of DIY. The topic of the conversation here is how do you take control of your career? And we've been talking about the midlife crisis or the mid-career crisis. By the way, mid-career crisis is actually a friend of mine. I think he's still in the attendee. He had written a book called Mid-Career Crisis. So that's why I keep remembering the name. But essentially, what we're talking about is midlife. People want to take control of your career. What are some of the practical things they need to do? Is it brushing up their profile on the digital world, social exchanges? What are some of the things that you believe should be done?
I think that's a great starting point. Actually, I think the first thing is to have an idea about the direction that you want to head in, and I think the SMART goals of 5 years and beyond are gone now because the world changes too quick. We can't know what it's going to look like 5 years from now, and I think someone asked a question on that before. But even if we go 18 months to 2 years ahead, all right, where do I want to be? And then you steer it into more, well, what have I got? Who can I connect with? Yes, let me update my LinkedIn profile, for example. Let me look at where that work might be happening. Where can I connect with people who are doing that sort of thing? Where can I read articles about this? And you start that activity, then that really starts you off in a new direction. And people start to recognize you as well. Oh, that person's interested in X, Y, Z. Oh, they're passionate about that. This is what they believe in. And I always say, if you're not clear about what those things are, then just really pay attention to what what will wake you up in life. What's making you get up and want to stand up or speak up, or, they're the things to pay attention to if you're really lost at sea and you don't know where to go next. It will be in there. Your passion is always in there.
It's not really different from when you start a career. The only thing that you have the advantage of wisdom and being there, done the hard work, been said no many times, learn from that. I think, it's also a question of supply and demand. So you have to be very realistic around what you got to offer. What is your skill set? How up to date is it? Right? What is really, what is that you offer? And then match that with what's out there, right? So really understand. I find it, even with so many years in HR, sometimes we are our worst enemies when we write job descriptions, right? I mean, it's just complicated. They don't tell a story. They're not clear for people, right? So if you have to spend some time researching the job description and the job market and understanding again where you fit, and then find that niche. But obviously at the same time, don't forget your passion and your purpose. But again, let's be also very realistic, right? When the market is going through what is going on right now, your options might be more limited, right? So be realistic on what trade-offs you wanna do, but start really looking at your skill set. And as I said, if you have a coach, that's great. If not, have someone that you trust. Do a proper kind of skill-based assessment with you, right? Have that reality check and know and be very clear afterwards, what is that your USPs. And I think that's again, we have the advantage of experience. A lot of young people, unfortunately, don't have the career guidance from school, so they'll be lost, right? They often don't have role models or guides in their life. But again, we have the advantage of having a network, having better self-awareness, and again, been there, done it, got the badge in terms of dealing with rejection, which you get a lot of, right? Especially if you go in the job market and not stay in your current company, for example.
If I may add, I'm an advocate of being proactive in your career instead of being reactive. Proactive means creating opportunities instead of reacting to the opportunities that come. They might never come also. And I would like to share a little bit, like some tips you can maybe take away from the session today. Is about first identify and start managing your personal brand. And there are some questions you can ask yourself about your personal brand. Is, for example, what is my current brand? Is also reputation. What is my current reputation? How am I perceived? How people see me? Does it match the way I see myself? Do I translate my inner value and my inner strength to the world? And does the world see what I want to translate? Very often, trust me, very often, these are absolutely two different things. Is my personal brand something I take charge of, something I manage, or it's something that just happens? Because you do have a reputation, even if you don't manage it, even if you don't influence it, if you don't take charge of it. People do have an opinion about you. They do perceive you in a certain way. Is that exactly the way you want to be perceived? How you can influence that? There are many channels you can communicate your personal brand. You should very well know what are your values, what are you communicating actually. And there is very simple thing I can ask all of you who are here right now at the session, just Google yourself, write your name in Google, and read everything you find about yourself. What type of social media you are part of? How does your profile look like? What do you actually say in that profile about yourself? How does your LinkedIn profile look like? Your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever. And are you authentic? Is there a line? Are you same everywhere? And that will give you an understanding already how people perceive you. There is a lot of digital also presence nowadays. Yeah, we work remotely, we interact remotely. There is less way to influence and interact and create connections. They're different. So your digital presence is also a way of you to build your personal brand and be consecutive in what you're doing. Have a one red line, let's say in this way. Then are you acting from a place of strength at your work, what you are doing, or you are trying to be someone you are not? For example, if you are a soft leader, but you are trying to be a tough manager, everyone around you will think you fail. Because if your strength is to coach people, then coach people, don't manage them. And coaching versus management is also a shift. Maybe we will talk about later. I would love to see more coaches on working places. People who see and empower each other, see each other's strength, and create spaces instead of creating long lists of to-do things or only delegating things. And if you, for example, if you realize that your purpose is to be a brand manager, or team lead of your department, then are you acting today to be there where you want to be? Are you sharing your expertise? Are you generous with your knowledge? Do you speak up? Do you reach out? Do you create correct connections or create them in general? How do you communicate? Do you communicate your values? there are so many things I want to mention. The last thing I want to say: be your own advocate and be your own cheerleader. No one else will do that for you.
I think that's a great point. And Pablo, I'll just come to you in 1 second. There's a question from Debjani Guha. A person who's going through a career transition or mid-career is upskilling himself, herself to prepare for the roles which are in demand, but sees the younger people are being preferred in the job market. Panel's view on this bias, please. Yeah, maybe we start with you, Pablo.
Well, I just wanted to add, for me, the most critical part is to be fearless. Because when you are fearless, it doesn't matter if we're in a pandemic, if you get a rejection or anything. You will make it happen at the end. And you will go through a lot of, unfortunately, rejections, no thank you, or even no answer at all. So when you are fearless, at the end, you will get it. My other point is keep learning. And keep learning is, I read some information from the World Economic Forum that apparently between 40 to 50% of the employees will need to be reskilling, to get some reskilling within the next 5 years. And also I read some report from McKinsey that around 85% of the jobs by 2030, there will be jobs that we don't know yet which jobs are they going to be. So let's say the speed of the world is going into a direction that we have never seen before. As an individuals, let's say as working for an organization or being as an external or anyone, I think that this is a moment that we need to keep learning. And we can learn not only because we are within an organization, also because we can have a lot of different sources at the moment, and also they are for free. So also you don't have to pay for that. But the important thing is that you find, first of all, an idea of what you want, and also to be aware that maybe this is going to change after 1, 2, 3 years. But keep learning, because at the end, no one is going to be able to take that new learning and those skills that you are getting. Going back to the part of fearless, when you are fearless and you have these skills, you will rock. Also, a third point, you need to have an ally. You need to have a rock. You need to have a person that you're going to get the energy with. Because especially in the time of a storm, we need to have an umbrella. And this rock is this persons who are going to be there for you. It can be a coach, it can be a mentee, it can be a friend, it can be a colleague, you name it. The important thing is that you keep learning. And if I may add, another point is also mentorship. And mentorship can be not only who is only older or more senior, it can be also someone who is younger or who is even, let's say, someone who is starting his or her career. Because at the end is, we need to keep learning. And also, something that I work a lot with my clients is, how can we find someone who is mirroring us, someone who will understand us, someone who is going to tell us, you are doing it fantastic, or, you need to change it, and you need to work on point A, B, C, D. So when we have, all or any of these points, I think that it will be easier to take some steps.
Look, what Pablo is saying is music to my ears, especially working for an online education company. And you're right, I think the question initially was, what happens when candidates who are much younger than you get the job? And many times, and I can tell you from a perspective of an employer and someone who interviews for a lot of software engineers and UX designers right now, there is a perception that the new digital skills are just for the youth, right? That young people have those digital skills, and if you are mid-career, you don't, right? So as Pablo said, follow his good advice. Get yourself up to speed with the new skills, because there's a lot of demand there in the new skills. And contrary to what people might think, even becoming a DevOps specialist, it's not, you don't need to go to uni. You can actually learn it in 6 months, right? So if any of us thinking of a career shift into more of the development, the software side or UX, these are skills that can be learned in relatively short period of time, with investment of time and obviously some money and the opportunity to maybe test your applied skills somewhere, a couple of years ago, I led a big youth program at Vodafone, and we encouraged young girls and women to learn coding with the social enterprise. And I went to a coding school. I felt so out of my comfort zone. I learned basic HTML for 4 days, and unfortunately, I forgot everything because I didn't apply it. But actually, sitting there with younger girls who are much faster than me in picking up the new skill, I realized that, you know what, I actually can learn how to code, and I'm a humanist and a linguist, right? So, but that kind of gave me confidence that, you know what, actually, some of these skills we need to bust the myths of the digital skills and get more people to learn them, because this is where the demand is, and you have to follow where demand is in the market. I'm not kidding. I think it takes me about 6 months to find very good product managers. And again, product managers are not rocket scientists, right? They have some basic design, basic management skills, good influencing skills. Again, you don't have to be an engineer. Still very hard to find product managers, and I hire them anywhere in the world, just if they're good, right? So, and a lot of employers are like me right now. There is a huge demand for these skills, and it's really hard to find people in the market. I wouldn't care whether you are 25 or 45 or 60, right? If you have the right skills, you would kind of meet the mark. Again, the problem is a lot of people don't know what their strengths are and how they can transfer this current skill set and translate them into kind of the new skills, right? Because a lot of this literature is out there, but it's very unclear, and unfortunately, there's not many proper skill assessment tools out there that could help guide them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This is one topic that we could endlessly talk about. This is such an interesting topic. By the way, just for the fun of it, there was a comment which is Gavin McGivern. He's saying, what is the best course on Future Learn for coaching Catalina? You know what? You can't coach Catalina. She is her own boss. So I can't say, but I'm sure Catalina is going to respond to that on the chat. But since we are kind of towards the end of the session, I just want to ask one last question and want to hear each of the expert panelists talk about it, right? This person who has written this article in our magazine, he's talked about something called cartographic career. What he's saying is essentially that we are no longer in that let's say age where by just reskilling, we have a career for another 20 years. Now we're looking at probably need to reskill every 2 to 3 years, which is what he's calling as cartographic careers, right? Just one final thought from each one of you on that concept.
I would agree. I think we have to upskill regularly for the reasons that we've talked about, but I also think it's important to recognize that we're always building those skills. We're not throwing out the old skills and fully replacing them. So it's always about, we're growing and we're adding and we're sort of integrating all the time. So otherwise it can feel incredibly daunting and also quite depressing to think, I have to retrain again. It doesn't have to be like everything's out and a whole new load of things. And I would say just, be courageous about trying out new things. And it doesn't matter if you don't sort of take to everything. There's always something to learn. I think it was Mandela who said, I either fail or I either succeed or I learn. There's no such thing as failure. And I think that's a real lovely thing to hold close when we're navigating this new landscape.
Irina?
Yeah, we can talk a lot about the ways things will develop in future. We really don't know. We are speculating right now. And there are a lot of amazing, wonderful terms. What I want to say is that one thing will remain forever relevant. Not one thing, but there are some skills which will always be needed and which will always be the most important ones, are interpersonal skills. Well, how human you are in whatever you do. And when even mentioning that it's very hard nowadays to find someone with precise technical skills you need, it's even harder to find someone combining technical skills with interpersonal skills and being able to stress resistant and to solve conflict and to come up with solution and to listen to others. What a wonderful skill, because we listen to instead of listening to understand, we listen to respond. And all these interpersonal skills, ability to connect to have meaningful connections with people around us, to work in a team, to lead a team, to coach someone, to mentor someone, to serve, the spirit of service, being active agent of change, putting interest of other people first. All these things will be always relevant. And we should not fear technical revolution or whatever comes, because every single decision, even on the labor market, is taken from the human perspective. The decision to hire someone is very often emotional, not rational. So how we interact as human beings is the most important thing. All the rest, what we do, will come in the right place as long as we have these fundamental skills. We will always compete with machines, because this human factor will always remain with us, and we should really look into that much more. Transferable soft skills, interpersonal skills.
Pablo, how about you?
I just wrote down some ideas. I think that part of reskilling has to be permanent, and like Danielu said, you should never throw away the skills and the knowledge that you already have, because it's part of you. But I think that some learning that we are getting from 2020 and 2021 is that we need to keep learning. And most important, we need to be open for change, and we need to adapt to change. The animals that survive at the end are the animals who can adapt themselves better. And I know that for many of us, we have been in a privileged bubble. So change is challenging, but at the same time, we keep learning. And I think that means when we learn, we will survive. And even if there is another pandemic or any kind of situation, we will be there. Also, something that I will say as well is keep going, keep learning, and also believe in yourself. I think that's a must. And even if it's dark, even if we have challenges, we will get there. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Catalina.
I think Pablo is a man after my own heart when you talk about keep learning. And I think, Irina, it really resonates with me. And I'm still frustrated that we still call them soft skills, even in 2021. We should call them power skills or, critical skills or something, because this element of soft and fluffiness makes it a bit intangible and a bit unserious. And a lot of people in HR are actually guilty of not putting more pressure on these things, right? So I would add to all these power skills, I would add one that I'm passionate about. I read a lot about. It's a bit of a buzzy thing going on right now, but actually a good friend of mine has started the Global Curiosity Institute, and he has a theory about curiosity that curiosity has 3 dimensions, and a bit like agility, it's fundamental to innovation, to evolution, right? And he says, look, there's curiosity about the world, and the better you are at it, the better you are at problem solving, the better you explore, the better you innovate. Look at Bill Gates, bless him, he still reads 5 hours a week, and he's trying to solve obviously big issues with diseases that kill children in Africa, right? How inspiring is that? There's then curiosity about others, and you talked about empathy, right? So your empathic curiosity, a level of openness to others. I think we all know empathetic people around us. I think if I look at the panel, you guys are very high on empathy, and I don't know you personally. And the third one is curiosity about ourselves. And unfortunately, apparently only 10 to 15% of the adult population are curious about themselves. So that's the inner desire to understand deeper drivers, what drives us to think, why we do things, right? And that piece is where you either get a good coach if you're lucky to find one, or it takes a lot of self-reflection, it takes meditation, but you have to do something about it, because if you are outside of that 10 to 15% population, then you are in trouble, right? You need to start flexing your curiosity muscle to stay relevant, to continue to grow, and to have a career that's, that will fulfill your ambitions and your happiness. So that's all from me.
Thank you so much, Catalina. You kind of summed it very nicely. I was looking around the room and I saw curious faces here. So kind of dovetailing into what you just said. This was such a fantastic discussion. I must absolutely say this is one of the best roundtables I've conducted so far. With that, I would like to thank each one of you, Dani Lukáš, Catalina Ninger, Irina Musuk, Pablo Perez, and mulțumesc to Catalina, Olce spasiba to Irina, Danilo, thank you, and Pablo Perez, muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now I would call upon the CEO of Roundtable Insights to close the session for the day today. Thank you, and see you at the next one in May when we'll talk about reformulation of operational excellence.